The War of the Five Kings is a pretty major plot point in the first half of A Song of Ice and Fire. A conflict 15 years in the making, born from the embers of apathy and fueled by the fires of greed, pride, and honor. In the end, it can be argued none of the Five Kings actually won, and while some had minor victories, fundamentally their triumph was ultimately fleeting. It might even be fair to say the conflict is still kind of ongoing. One king is still hanging in there because he's the fucking menace. And 3 of the other kings are still not technically knocked out of the fight, because despite they themselves biting the dust, their power bases are still trying with varying degrees of success to stay in the game. This stalematey situation made Tom ask the question, who would have been the best king if one had managed a total victory and claimed rulership over the 7 kingdoms? And the answer I gave him? Hey, we can milk a video out of that! Note, this is not a in a perfect world scenario like our best kings video that you can watch here. We're judging the kings against the backdrop of the political climate that's present during and after the conflict. So just remember going in that there are snakes in the grass and big changes to the system take time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, it helps us out massively. Discord and Patreon is here, and this is the best way to reach us if you've got suggestions. We've recently started a monthly vote in the Discord server where you can vote for videos you want us to prioritize, so come on over. That everything? Right, load up those clips, Tom, and let's get going. Our number 5, and the worst possible choice for Victor, is the guy who kind of initially did win, though not off his own back. It's Joffrey Baratheon. Joffrey is bad news for the realm. He's far too young for the position to start with, and clearly does not understand the workings of feudal politics, seeing the power of a king as a concept of absolutism rather than the delicate balancing act between appeasement and domination that it is in reality. But it doesn't stop at his youth. His ineptitude is tainted further by his mollycoddled upbringing and his natural inclinations towards sadism and cruelty. On top of this, he is naive and stupid, with no demonstrated desire to learn, and seems to be highly susceptible to the whispers and manipulations of the snakes at court. In particular, these 2 powerhouse players. It's even been theorized quite soundly that Littlefinger is the one who persuaded him to execute Ned, and let's not forget his primary counsel at times is just as stupid and incapable as him. Like narcissistic mummy, like narcissistic son. The schemers at court have basically got a marionette to take turns puppeting with a cruel sadistic coat of paint that makes for unexpected and tension-causing whims that all in all lead to a perpetual state of political instability. Joffrey just doesn't understand what it takes to rule, and more than once demonstrated impulsivity and rashness that is profoundly detrimental to the stability of a power base. Yes, the kid is only 13, and yes, it's possible he could have matured, but by the 7, is that a chance you want to take when the lad hits 16 and can do things at will with nay a man to stop him? No, is the wise answer, of course. Now, it is fair to say Joffrey can be controlled in private, but in public, the kid's a ticking time bomb with no hint as to when he's going to go off. This issue is exacerbated when you factor in it's much harder to go against his wishes in front of the people, because that would make him look weak. Not a good look for a king. We can look to the Purple Wedding to demonstrate this. In a more private setting, Tywin was able to calm the feud between Tyrion and Joffrey and smooth things over. But in the grander setting of the Purple Wedding, the most powerful man in Westeros had to basically sit by and watch. And let us not forget the boy's temper. Informing Joffrey of undesirable news or outcomes could mean severe punishment, which might lead to the accepted commonplace practice of telling him lies and placating his ego, all while more savvy minds plot and scheme to the detriment of his kingdom. Were it not for the damage control ran by these 2 highly competent players who, while not hard countering, were somewhat mitigating the gains of these 2 savants of the game by making them watch their step a little, the realm would have been in even more chaos with Joffrey at the helm than it already was. Even with a highly unified realm, Joffrey's reign would forever be on a knife's edge, due to how destructive his whims are and how susceptible to manipulation he is. But with the realm fractured to this degree, with some of the best plotters and schemers making their moves, even if he had definitively won the war, he was always going to fall eventually, and that's before these icy arseholes and this fiery conqueror came knocking. Grandparents don't live forever, and without Tywin's authority, our favourite little Lannister has no means of enforcing his own, and if you take away Tyrion and Tywin, Joffrey is genuinely one rash, unstable, emotionally influenced decision away from bringing about his doom. Worst choice by far in any scenario, not just this one. And with who you all know must also be on the list, that really is saying something. Speaking of which, the next worst victor at number 4 is of course the blundering, bungling bastion of Bellendery, Balon Greyjoy. Find the horse's grave and dig it up, Tom. We're going to need that corpse. Saved from bottom placement by his fin-on-the-ground virtues of patience, strong will, and less malleable and therefore harder to manipulate nature, Balon, like Joffrey, is still very bad news with total victory. He's kind of just a useless leader. That cannot be what's left of it. But instead of just bagging on him, for a brief speck of a moment, I'm going to take a second to defend him a little here. Whoa, Tom! Lower the crossbow! I'm not an imposter. I killed the non-Manis simping clone. Trust me, this praise won't last long. Balon's plan to seize the North wasn't a bad one from a strategic standpoint if you factor in that he was adamant he would not ally with the Starks, and vengeance against the North for past events was a mandatory objective. His intentions, from best can be deduced, were to take the North while the army was south, secure Moat Cailin, and trap the Northern Army's avenue of retreat, allowing it to get pasted by the Tyrells and the Lannisters in a classic hammer and anvil play. Then use the fact he had the key to the North as a means of strong-arming the South into just accepting it, or using it as somewhat of a bargaining chip to secure the Iron Islands' independence. On paper, it's not the best, to be sure, but it's also not the worst plan in the world. But this goes to show why he's such a bad fit for a king. He was fixated on vengeance, with nary a forgiving bone in his body. And forgiveness is definitely up there among the most desired traits for a king. Even the rigid, morally black and white vessel of the Manis was willing to forgive and pardon for the sake of big picture pragmatism and duty. And that says a lot. On top of this, he did not have the resources to accomplish his plan and deluded himself into thinking otherwise. If you don't have the means, you either acquire them through negotiation, trade, or force, or you go back to the bloody drawing board. You don't go,
fuck it, let's just go anyway.
His inflexibility regarding alliance is the most devastatingly detrimental trait by leagues, though. Like with Joffrey, kingship of a feudal realm is a balancing act between appeasement and strong-arming. And Balon can't do either effectively, since he's unwilling to compromise his cultural values, and just doesn't have the military skills to employ force effectively. Charisma and asset management skills are quite a big part of ruling, and Balon is utterly bankrupt in both. Even if by some miracle he'd actually managed to win the war and take all 7 kingdoms, I wouldn't give him a year. I would be counting it down by weeks or months depending on how fast word travels. Ironborn culture and religious beliefs are not conducive to a large-scale society like Westeros. What does a man and culture that makes its money by raiding and pillaging places do? Well, they carry on, of course. That's all Balon knows. It would only be a matter of time before the Ironborn pillage the wrong keep or slight the wrong player for the regions to decide to adopt the currency of the Ironborn and start paying the iron price themselves. And they have a lot more gold and men to play that game. An economy built on raiding is fine for a small kingdom like the Iron Islands, but for a realm as large as Westeros, there needs to be economical infrastructure and good administration. Not something you're going to get when your king's primary directive to any and all problems seems to be, "See those guys? Let's take their shit." Rebellion is inevitable, and that's not even accounting for the adept players of the game who may sow the seeds of uprising within Lord Paramounts. I don't know, maybe Balon just loves a good rebellion and actually rejoices in uniting the kingdoms into kicking his ass. If that is the case, maybe there's an argument to put him at number 1. He's just really a poor fit for the role, and he's really fucking stupid. On the plus side, though, Tom, lower that bloody crossbow. His untrusting demeanor and inflexibility would make him pretty damn hard to manipulate with the whispers of schemers and plotters. That's something, I suppose. Hey, I said something nice about the Ironborn. Where's my gold star, Tom?
Oh, thank you, buddy.
At number 3, we're making a massive leap from total incompetence to the highly capable, and it's... What the fuck, Tom? How dare you put the one true king at number 3? I will hear you out, but you had better have a good argument or it's the fires for you. Objectively speaking, Stannis is the best king on this list, which is why he made the best kings list when these guys didn't. And I'm honestly saying that without my usual Manis simping bias. Shocking, I know. He's almost got every single ingredient that makes for an effective ruler. Just fair, strong-willed, totally fucking incorruptible, intelligent and capable, along with being 7 hells of a military commander. The problem he's got, and why he hasn't taken the top spot here, is the state of the throne he would be inheriting. You've got 15 years of Bobby's lethargic leadership, combined with the state of the realm post-war. Things are lax with the law, and the kingdoms are fractured and without true unity. It really doesn't help that one of the most advantageous kingly traits to possess that would aid considerably in repairing this damage and expediting reunification is the only kingly trait that Stannis is completely deficient in. That being charisma. Stannis is reasonably well liked by the small folk, and this is often overlooked. He's fair, which makes him an everyman's type of leader, but he's widely disliked by the nobles, and unfortunately for Manis, the nobles are the ones with the power to help him repair the realms. Stannis truly does know how to put the kingdoms back together with peace and order, and keep it that way. But the problem is, in this climate, no one wants to help him do it. No one with any power, anyway. A big part of this is the double-edged sword that is his view on justice. With Stannis at the helm, the hammer of law is going to come down hard, and no one is safe, noble and commoner alike. Anyone who opposed him even a little, and this includes the North, is going to be punished in accordance with the severity of their crimes, which only serves to fan the flames of defiance, making submission and allegiance a long, drawn-out process. And leniency with everyday law will be a thing of the past. You stole that bread? Off with your hands! You refuse to kneel? It's the fires for you, etc., etc. I know this is hard to believe, but most people actually like having their hands and not being burned alive. One thing you might expect me to bring up in this section is Stannis' idea to ban brothels in King's Landing. However, I'm not sure this was down to his views on law or his being a prude. No, I think this is one of those moments where Stannis shows he's actually far better at playing the game than people give him credit for. Who owns most of the brothels in King's Landing? This wanker, who's amassing power and becoming a bit too big for their boots. This wanker! I honestly think the primary motivator of this notion was Stannis subtly trying to curb Littlefinger's ever-growing power and influence by striking at his primary source of revenue. Tom also theorizes that Stannis needed a cover for his investigation into Joffrey's heritage, and banning brothels by visiting them and seeing their conditions is a great cover for his real task. That, and, well, he is a bit of a prude. But that can't be true, because he's the Manis, the epitome, I'm going to kill you one day, Tom, of a man, and...
He did his duty in the marriage bed once or twice a year, but took no joy in it.
Who said that? Come closer to this fire. I just want to talk. Promise. Anyway, tangent aside, Stannis is the best choice overall, and in the books we might still see him take the win yet. But because of his rigid views on morality and justice, the kingdoms, being as slack as they are going to chafe under the moral binary of his rulership. And order will only be achieved through his force of will and just plain old force by itself. And it's going to take a long, long time for things to settle to where they should be. It's his way or no way, and while his way can be argued to be the fair way, the world of ice and fire, it just isn't a fair place. Sorry, Mannis. Rest assured I've taken Tom's tongue for this. At number 2, we go from pro-dude Mannis to young and horny wolf in Robb Stark. As King in North, and North only, Robb would be set for that number 1 spot. Comfortably. Providing he had some good old Northern Council, of course. Honourable, just, and strong-willed enough to stand up to his vassal lords and put them in their place, but also fair and willing to hear them out. Basically, Ned Stark light in many regards. On top of this, he's a great military commander, both tactically and strategically, and so has the skills to defend those under his dominion. Unlike Balon, he's also not a total fucking idiot and has a reasonable estimation of his power. He knows when he's got the advantage and when he's on the back foot, and as such is willing to negotiate, appease, and strong-arm those he needs help from, which, as mentioned earlier, is a must-have trait for a good king. Especially when you've got dragons flying and icy demons shuffling towards you. Where Robb starts to fall off the top spot is when you make him King of the Seven Kingdoms and put him on the Iron Throne. It mainly comes down to 2 traits, that being naivety and apathy. Robb's heart is with the North. Several times in story it's made quite clear he couldn't give 2 fanny-ass shites about the politics at South. And this would probably leave the guy fixating on the concerns of his home region. Which, understandable, the North is a very big place, but it's leaving the other kingdoms to their own devices. This, combined with his understandable youthful naivety regarding the seedier aspects of feudal politics, would potentially subject the other kingdoms to the rot of corruption. And like Joffrey and Balon, turning the already present cracks in the current political climate of the main series to full-blown fracture. Robb's relative naivety is not too much of a problem in the North, as Northerners, minus one name of course, are exceptionally loyal to one another, and particularly to the Starks, alongside having a higher respect for honor. So he's got breathing room. But in the South, where honor is seen as nothing but a fool's prize, it's dog eat dog, and with all the instability caused by Robert's apathy and the war itself, the top-tier players would likely eat him alive. Robb is a great king during war times and under certain conditions, but his lack of understanding of how things work south of the neck would really wreak havoc. The man was primarily raised with the concerns of the North and his king, not the workings of the other 6 regions. In some ways, he's almost as deluded as Joffrey when it comes to the concept of power, displayed with how dumbfounded he was at Walder Frey impeding him from helping Walder's own liege lord. The Wolf Cub clearly skipped his Politics 101 classes with Maester Luwin. He might of course have some people around him that can compensate for it, but again, his small council might end up too heavily northern focused. Kat might make a great hand of the king to guide him, but she really does have a tremendously exploitable Achilles heel, that being her family, and a blind spot for a certain brothel owner. Robb is a fantastic king, but only for his home region, unfortunately. Stick to it, North lad, and that'll be right. And at number 1, there's only one guy left, so no sense in stalling it out, it's Renly Baratheon. Allow me to clarify something first. Stannis is the best choice overall, Renly is the best choice for this specific situation. The youngest Baratheon brother might have had the weakest claim to their throne out of everyone vying for one, but for the state Westeros is in, he is the best guy to be sat on it. The biggest factor at play is his charisma. Everyone loves Renly, from the nobility to the small folk, and he's great at getting people behind him. I mean, come on, the guy had no legitimate claim to the Iron Throne whatsoever and still managed to get nearly all of the Stormlands and the Reach to back his claim. That is some serious people skills. He's not a great military leader, very much evidenced in his preference for starting tourneys over marching armies to strategic objectives in good time, but when you've got the highly elite forces of the Stormlands and the colossal army of the Reach behind you, you are in a position to brute force practically anyone who opposes you, especially when you've got this baldy badass leading them. And this isn't just the case for the military staff. Renly may not be as all-round individually capable in leadership as Stannis, but he is also not an idiot like two other kings present here today. And because of his people skills, he can form a support network of individuals who can compensate for his shortcomings. This does of course leave him open to manipulation from these supporters, but unlike Joffrey, Renly's time on the council seems to have wizened him up as to who and who not to trust, since he clearly doesn't trust Littlefinger or Varys as far as he can throw them. But the real kicker that is booting my beloved Manus down the road, Renly can unify the realm like Robert did and do it in good time, which is pretty vital considering the threats looming over the Seven Kingdoms. He's far more flexible than Stannis and far less rigid when it comes to justice. Renly would have been open to turning the occasional blind eye to unjust actions if it kept the kingdom running smoothly, ready to resist the icy and burny invaders. And he would have been far more willing to pardon those who had opposed him and get them back on side like Bobby B did during the rebellion. And while his offer to Robb is a little ungenerous despite his thinking contrary, the fact he made an offer at all beyond "bend the knee or I'll destroy you" does seem to indicate that he would have been possibly open to compromising somewhat if Robb did indeed want to come to the table to talk. The best way I can explain it is by comparing the kingdoms to a heart in your hands. Stannis would wrap his fingers round it tightly, forcing it to beat to the rhythm of his squeezes, whereas Renly would gently cup the heart in his hands and let it beat on its own, only squeezing when the beat begins to weaken or turn irregular. Of course, the best answer for who would have been the best king to win this conflict is Stannis, Renly, and Robb combined and working together. Stannis to balance out Renly, Renly to balance out Stannis, and Robb to act as mediator. You'd have 7 hells of a prosperous and safe realm on your hands, ready to face the fire and darkness. But if you can only pick one, Renly would probably net you the most gains in the shortest amount of time, which, with reader-informed dramatic irony of what's on the way, is quite important. And that's our take. Do you agree? Because I don't. Manus not at number 1 is a crime, Tom!